we have learned how to graph lines when they are written in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is the y equals mx plus b. And it is called that. It's called slope-intercept form because you can look at it and see the slope and the y-intercept, which makes it very, very easy for us to graph. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. You cannot see the slope and the y-intercept in this form. So when we are given a linear equation in standard form, this is ax plus by equals c. We want to rewrite it to be in y equals mx plus b, slope-intercept form, because that would make it easier for us to graph it. So to do that, it's just like we solved for x. The steps are the same, but this time we're solving for y. We want y to be by itself. We want y equals. So what's over here that I have to get rid of? A 2x. So how do you get rid of it? You do the opposite, minus 2x. But what I do to one side of the equal sign, I must do to the other. Now, I cannot take x's away from numbers. Those are not like terms. I cannot do it. So what do you do then? You just have to write it down. Now, I hope that you will be okay with me putting the x term first, because in y equals mx plus b, don't I want the x term to go first? So I just put the minus becomes a negative 2x, the 8 is positive, so it gets a plus sign. Now, is this in y equals mx plus b form? Yes. What is the slope? -2. What is the y-intercept? 8. That would make it easy to graph that. So let's look at another one. Let's look at 3x plus 4y equals 12. Actually, I'm going to make that 16. So this is not in slope-intercept form, but I want it to be. So I want y isolated. Now, you know that we always get rid of this last because it makes our math easier. So let's do the same thing we did on the first one. Let's subtract the 3x. What's left? 4y equals, now I'm going to write the 3x first, the -3x, so that it looks more like slope-intercept form. Then our last step is to get rid of the 4. The way we get rid of it is to divide. Now it's gone, but I have to divide everything by 4. So what's this? Well, let's just leave it as a fraction because I like my slope as a fraction. -3 over 4x plus 16 divided by 4 is 4. This is my slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. The slope is -3/4. B is the y-intercept, and it's 4. So let's go to another one. Let's go to one. It's going to look a little different. So x minus 3y equals 9. Sorry about that. And so let's do the steps again the same that we've been doing them. Subtract the x. -3y equals, remember we're going to write the x first. The 9 is positive. So let's put a plus 9. Now, remember that we divide next. Let's divide by -3. I have to divide everything by -3. Here's the tricky part. Your brain sees this and wants to put 3. But remember that there's an imaginary 1 right here. So I've got -1 over -3. If you can't remember what to do with your negatives, use that alpha y equals n, or the fraction function in your calculator. But negative over negative reduces to positive. Guys, leave this as a fraction, 1 over 3. That's what this is, 1 over 3. 9 divided by -3 is -3. That negative becomes your minus, and you have 1/3, y equals 1/3 x minus 3. 1/3 is your slope. -3 is your y-intercept because that minus is attached to that 3, making it negative. Let's do one more. 5x, well, probably more than 1. 5x minus y equals 10. And so we need to get y by itself, so we need to subtract the 5x. But don't drop your negative. The minus is attached to the y, leaving you with negative y. Do not drop that. Don't miss it. A lot of you will just pretend it's not there. How do I get rid of it? Well, isn't it like an imaginary 1? So we divide everything by negative 1, and we get 5x minus 10. This is 5 is your slope, negative 10 is your y-intercept. If you were going to count the slope, the rise over run, you would put 5 over 1 because that's how we make a whole number into a fraction. So our next one, 6y minus 8x equals negative 16. Let's keep our process the same. Oh, what happened here? Tricky, tricky. They switched the y and the x. Your goal is to get y by itself, so you need to get rid of the x. We get rid of a minus by doing the opposite, which is plus. So 6y equals 8x minus 16. As I put the 8x in front, the negative turns into your minus. Now I divide by 6. Y equals, now I could leave this as 8 over 6, or I could do the better thing to do, which is reduce it to 4 over 3. If you're bad at reducing fractions, remember that your calculator will do it for you. Now, if I were going to graph this, and negative 8/3 doesn't really help me plot a y-intercept on the graph, so I would probably want to turn this into a decimal and guess, but we're not. In Algebra 1, you're probably not going to see one that's that uneven, because that would be a repeating decimal and would be very hard to graph. We're usually nicer to you than that. So number 6, 5x minus 7y equals 14. On this one, it is in order, so I'm going to subtract my 5x. What am I left with? I'm left with negative 7y equals negative 5x plus 14. To get y by itself, I divide by the negative 7. Remember that you have to divide everything by negative 7. That becomes positive because negative over negative is positive. This is minus 2. There's your slope-intercept form, slope, y-intercept. We're going to do 2 more just to make sure we've got this. Number 7, x minus y equals 9. This one looks a little different. So I'm subtracting x. Doesn't that mean that I'm subtracting 1x? There's an imaginary 1. What's left? Negative y, don't drop the negative, equals negative x plus 9 because that minus x becomes a negative. And then I divide by negative 1. Because I have to divide everything. I don't want to know what negative y is. That's not slope-intercept form. I want to know what positive y is. Then when I divide by negative 1, I get x minus 9. So what would be your slope on this one? Your y-intercept would be negative 9. Your slope would be 1. If you were graphing this, you would start down here at negative 9, and you would go up 1 over 1. That's what your graph would look like. One more. Number 8 is x plus 3y equals negative 12. First thing we do is get rid of that x. I can't really subtract it from a number, from a 12, so I write it down and I put it first. So it'll be in slope-intercept form. This minus is attached, making that negative makes it a minus. Divide everything by 3. So here, isn't there an imaginary 1? So negative 1/3 x minus 4. So this one would be, if you were graphing it, Your -4 is your y-intercept. Always start on the y-axis with your y-intercept. Then it's a negative slope, down 1 over 3. This would be a nice negative. So be careful that you go the correct way with these. And that is rewriting equations that are in standard form into slope-intercept form.